learning together really captures my affection towards the listenership, Arlan, because that's exactly what I am doing. And I'm doing it in the cab of their tractor or in the laundry room or wherever, and me and them learning together. And that's a tremendous blessing.
Greetings and welcome to Breaking Bread, podcast brought to you by Apostolic Christian Counseling and Family Services. And if you think that something sounds a little different right now, you are correct. I'm Arlan Miller, and I'm joined here in the studio by the usual host, Matt Kaufmann. Brian Sutter and Katie Miller have both joined us as well. And this is a special day, a special episode,
It's a
special
takeover.
podcast.
It's a takeover.
This is not a hostile. This is not a hostile
It's a
takeover.
coup.
They warned me that this was going to happen.
So we have had the privilege now for over 10 years to have Breaking Bread podcast available to the Apostolic Christian Church and those who might listen in. And we want to take a moment to just pause, to reflect, and to be thankful, first off, to you as a listener for your years of faithful listening, and just an acknowledgement to the work that God has done through this podcast. So thanks, all of you, for joining us here in the podcast studio. Matt, I just want to, we've wrestled with what to do about this. We knew this date was coming, right? It's circled on the calendar, and we wanted to give some type of acknowledgement because of God's faithfulness. I mean, the Bible is filled with that. And so it's good to pause and reflect and remember where we've been and how God has led throughout the way. And so let's just do that today.
That's really the spirit, Arlan. And when you encourage me, hey, do something for the 10-year anniversary. If you've ever tried to plan a party for yourself, by yourself,
That sounds so
and you're not sure who's going to show up.
So
and maybe you don't know if
anticlimactic.
anybody's going to show up. It really falls flat. I think self-congratulations falls flat, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
not the heart.
But I think to do just exactly what you said, to pause, reflect, give God glory, and to honor our listenership, I think just is really appropriate.
Yeah.
We want to do that today.
Yeah, so I want to go back just a little bit. Maybe this is known, but where did the idea of Breaking Bread come from? How did this happen?
2015. Take us back, Matt.
Well, Denny Verkler was where the podcast idea came from.
And Brian, you were part of this discussion too, right?
Yeah, I think
Prior to that?
I think I maybe was the one. Yeah. So it's, at the end of the year, we get together in the big conference room and like, hey, what are you going to work on the next year? And I was just like, we've got all this information. We're always trying to figure out like, how do we get this out to people? Like, I hear about this thing called podcast, and people are listening to stuff.
Yeah, and I want to go on the record to say I was like, isn't that kind of a fad? Like podcast, people don't do those things, do they?
Trendy.
But Denny, to his, like you said, like then he knew how to do all of the audio stuff.
His skill set
So it was
really
right
spoke to
into
it.
his
Sure.
skill set, and he was really on board, and it was interesting.
Well, because the first I heard it was in my interview, and he said, what do you think? Can you do a podcast? Which I don't know how you do interviews, but you just say yes to a lot of things.
Yes, you do.
Yes, Denny Verkler.
And I knew I was a good actor because I've taught for a decade.
Yes, you have.
And every teacher knows how to act, and every teacher knows how to make believe like they actually know a thing.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I guess I'm well suited for this.
Well, and to be fair, and you became a student of podcasting.
Yes.
I appreciated watching that,
Because
man.
on a scale of 1 to 10, Matt, how comfortable with like technology, audio, equipment thing would you have been 10 years ago?
Well, I still don't like technology. it's been a thing, right?
Right. But you've been
But Denny Verkler was the mastermind of the audio and the technology, set me up, told me what button to push, and the rest is history.
But Brian, you and Craig, and I think Matt, you were in there, and in the big conference room, you kind of sat down and had a conversation about like cell phones and technology and parents. I mean, that was the first episode.
Is
I
it?
think.
I don't even remember.
It is.
Yeah.
It was? Yes.
Yeah.
Took 3 episodes to say what we wanted to
Oh,
say.
my word. I mean, how many times did we start and didn't push record? Or we'd lose it halfway through? I mean, just even thinking about the room we're in today.
I was just thinking that from the little closet, but you're saying you started in the conference room. And then we went to this small closet space.
So the location has shifted a little bit. We've gone from closet to closet, and now we have a really nice little studio that's been built here in the ACCFS office.
That audio equipment was really nice. It was state of the art. I remember you couldn't rustle papers. Like everything was you caught everything. And so it was really
That was the expertise of Denny coming into
Absolutely.
it, which really
Absolutely.
has been a beautiful gift to the agency and to the church to provide the environment
Yeah.
for conversations to take place.
And he was really wise because if you can't pull off good content, pull off good audio.
I'm hoping we've done some of both. But
Absolutely. And even after we started doing that, and he would make those sorts of comments, and then you'd listen to others, and it's like, oh, I think their content's pretty solid, but our audio,
Yeah, exactly.
Are they in the back seat of the car somewhere? Right, yeah. So the question, the name Breaking Bread. Well, what does that mean? So, Matt, you have where's the name come from?
Yeah.
What's the
I think
genesis?
the essence and the spirit of the name is that Christ is the bread of life. And in every culture, bread is the basic substance of nourishment. Every culture has a bread that, whether it's the taco, the sourdough, the injera, depending on your culture. But the idea is that we break bread together and we find life-giving sustenance together. We come around tables and we eat together, which is very AC, right? It's very AC. But yet the better bread to break is Christ himself. And he offers himself as the bread that's broken. And so, boy, I would just hope that this podcast at some level breaks Christ among, and we share him, and we find health. And so I would say health is probably at the center of our intention here. Healthy content to encourage health and growth. Yeah.
Because there is that kind of that metric, in your mind that you walk through. You think, what's a topic? What are we hearing? What are we seeing? What's a way that we can engage the church in a encouraging growth way? Right? Our tagline, nurturing hope.
Can't remember.
It's gone right there.
Boy, you're on your own.
Helping the hurting, nurturing hope, encouraging growth. There it is.
The director needs to know
And
this.
so this is,
I don't know. Arlen's in charge of this thing.
Exactly.
so this is where that one comes from a little bit, because this idea of, how do we proactively, in an encouraging way, get out to the church and share ways to encourage the health of the church? And Katie, as you've engaged as a teacher out into the different churches, different places, you see this kind of coming back full circle, perhaps.
It has been a really good blessing. It's been humbling to get feedback and comments from as we go to different churches or have conversations. I view it's a blessing and it's humbling, but it's also the medium of podcasting is a great communication tool where you kind of have a two-way voice. So it's not just the voices in the studio. Those are part of it. That's one direction. But then it's the other direction. When we go out, we see people, we hear, oh, I liked this podcast. I had questions about this podcast. Have you ever thought about this podcast or this content? It's a beautiful marriage of just like the clinical piece. What are some trends that, the counselors are seeing? But also like what are the grassroots, the church, the local ministries hearing, seeing, needing, what resources, and then being able to speak there. So their voice coming back into the studio has been that's been a great, I feel blessed to be the ears sometimes and not just the voice, for sure.
Well, Katie, if I can just geek out a little bit about in my view, the importance of knowing your audience.
Yeah.
And we have a unique podcast in the sense that we know our audience really well, and it's a real blessing. In fact, we're in and among our audience on a regular basis. And not to say that our audience does not move past, the apostolic Christian denomination. Certainly we do, and we welcome listeners, and we know we do have listeners beyond us. But that's been a real advantage, I think, to our forum, and it's really helped it.
So to if you feel like sometimes you're listening in on a conversation amongst family, that's really our heart and our desire. This is like a family level conversation that we're trying to have with our church family to encourage them in a way, you talked about medium, in a way that can be easily consumed.
Yeah.
Can I share a story of somebody who is a longtime listener who gave me some advice to this very point, Arlan? She's a great storyteller. And so she comes up to me and she says, I listened to the podcast, for which I was received that and was very thankful, didn't know what was coming.
What was
next. And then she says, Matt, when I was a child, so I knew a story was coming on. When I was a child, we would go on vacation and we would stop at those big travel centers for gas. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I do. I know what you're talking about. And she said, I would inevitably go in there and I would find the little license tag nameplate stand. Do you know what I'm talking about? I said, yeah, I do. I know what you're talking about. She said, I would turn that around and look. Do you know what I was looking for? Your name? Yes, I was looking for my name, she said. Her name was Jeannie. She says, I would look for my name. And not that I was going to buy the license tag, but I just wanted to know that somebody thought about a Jeannie and that there was a Jeannie out there.
Right.
And then she says to me, sometimes when I listen to the podcast, I don't feel like my name is there. Yeah. You're speaking to perhaps somebody else. And everybody listening is listening for their name.
Yeah.
Isn't that powerful?
It is.
Powerful feedback. And it's only when your audience is that close to you, do you get that type of feedback given in that type of way. And that was formative from that point forward.
So how do you then, Matt, like when you get comments or church outreach or clinicians, how do you choose, that would maybe be a great family conversation, or that is going to identify, that's what that story example is, that would identify with most of our audience. So how do you pick and choose like which content, how is it going to
Well, some of that comes from feedback.
Yeah.
If it's coming up from the grassroots, which we do that, we've had different ways for people to submit suggestions and that type of thing. Certainly that's one way. But Brian, you've got the perspective of a counseling room, right?
Yeah.
And those things that you're seeing in there a lot often.
Yeah. And it does seem like even from that perspective, even just some of the things that we kind of feel like we're constantly going over or kind of sharing, like, this maybe would be like, how do we get this out to a wider audience? And it's been fascinating, even just kind of reflecting on it. Like, as you interact in the counseling room, the ones that the podcast that people connect with that you're like, oh yeah, here, that would really meant, and then you go out and you're interacting with a wider audience and it seems like they connect with different ones. And just to recognize that you're speaking to different audiences and depending on where they're at, that maybe it lands really well and it may be like, oh, have you thought about this other side? And it's just been good to remember there's different versions of the story and depending on where you're at, it lands differently.
It reminds me of a conversation, Brian, you and I had a long time ago. At least, again, this is how I remember it. But I asked you, I said, what would be one message that you wish every parent kind of knew? Like, what is something, if you could ask every parent, you'd want them to kind of take hold of this? And it was basically, I'd love to have every parent be able to be intentional about giving the talk on sexuality and sex education and stuff to their kids. Like, can we raise the intentionality and the willingness to step into that? Which was interesting because if you look at the stats,
it's the most listened to.
It's the most suspiciously so. Yeah. Like we've kind of wondered if it's like
it on repeat.
But that's kind of what we're wondering, Brian.
Every family table puts it on, and there we go.
Yeah, because it's like just super high. But that's the opportunity of a medium like a podcast, is to think about how do we reproduce messages that we trust will be encouraging, supporting, helpful for the audience to listen to understand.
And I think, too, even that, it kind of maybe reminds us that for all of us, we have different topics that we're interested in, but sometimes they're kind of in the shadows, and it's a little bit hard to start that conversation. So in some ways, it feels like it's an opportunity to start to crack that door open, hopefully, and make it a little bit safe on some spots.
Because it's really vulnerable to say, hey, I'm thinking that, but as a parent, are you thinking that, Brian? And like, is that a space to even talk about? Is it something that would take, is there an interest to it? That's extremely vulnerable.
And knowing that the podcast is used to launch conversation in the local church setting is, I think, super rewarding.
We just did it last weekend. We had some young couples over. Beforehand, we said, would you listen to this podcast on busyness and marriage and whatnot? And then we'll just talk about it. And it's a beautiful conversation starter and continuation within the church. That's our prayer. And we want to acknowledge, like, all of this is much bigger than us. Like, you can lose yourself in trying to figure out every last piece. And so we trust ultimately the Lord and his working in the Spirit to just lead to fruit greater than we can even understand.
And I think it's just been fun for us too. In some ways, I don't know if that's been your experience or not,
absolutely
Matt,
is.
but just to sit around and have an hour where we just get to have a conversation with each other. I mean, I've really enjoyed that. And even going into counseling, I would have said, no, I'm not a teacher, but it's helped me think about being a teacher, and that in a counseling setting, you are a teacher, but that's not necessarily our strong suit. But it's helped me in that, I would say.
So in that vein, I mean, let's think about, I mean, Matt, what are some of the episodes that kind of stick out to you, or just conversations, or just some that kind of rise to the top in your memory bank?
I mean, I'm the first recipient, right, of the conversation, the teaching that our professionals bring to bear, or our guests bring to bear. We've had over 30 guests on the podcast, and then our staff has been something like 15, I think. And so by the time I listen to it once and then produce it, I've listened to it a few other times. Man, I ought to be a whole lot wiser than I really am.
Do you listen to it on your own phone and device? Can I just ask that fun little FAQ?
Some I do.
Do you?
Yeah, some I do.
Once you've listened, you've edited, you've released it, show notes go out.
Yeah, and and let me just say there are some episodes that are super special to me.
Yeah.
And I will re-listen to those because I was in the room when it happened, and the emotion of some of our testimonies, for example. We've had, Del and June on Knobloch talking about the grief of suicide, right? Or Mark and Marty Tybel, right? Talking about what they went through with an abortion. Yeah. We've had Casey and Tyler Zimmerman on and talking about infertility, right? These are really, really sacred spaces. We had Randy and Evie Mogler come and talk about special needs, which is my all-time favorite, actually.
Is it really?
I do, yeah. Mm-hmm. But it educates me, it reorients me, and I just feel like they did such a great job. Yeah. And it was a topic that I didn't feel like could possibly done well enough, but they certainly were able to do that. Yeah. So, there's some of those, and I could go on and on with lots of episodes that really blessed me.
Arlan, what's been one of your favorite podcasts?
Yeah, no, see, I'm asking the questions today.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, that's what you can do.
That's right. That's the power. That's the rules. No, it's a great question, Katie. I actually really loved, we did a kind of a special little one around Christmas time once where we just talked about our favorite Christmas hymns as a church outreach team. And I loved it because of the camaraderie that we have as a team. Mm-hmm. And we hope, our goal, again, not to be about ourselves, but to share the power of that season to the church family and get them thinking about, I think there's such powerful songs during that time of the year, every time of the year, but especially that time of the year. And so, that one kind of sticks out to me.
And I had some nice feedback from the one we did on humor with counseling staff, which was pretty funny. Oh, yeah. And Kathy is yet to finish her joke about the three elders that walked into the bar.
So the next podcast she's on, please ask and start off.
But hearing from the listeners who's like, it was really good to hear counselors laugh, and I think that's been healthy.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, I don't know that I would say I have a favorite, but the favorite times have been interacting with colleagues and laughing, or like, you have those funny experiences or like aha moments when somebody shares something, and those have been sweet. Yeah.
Katie, do you have a favorite podcast episode?
You never ask. So I like some of my favorite podcast episodes are probably, I think, most likely speak to us in the stage we're in. So some of the parenting ones have hit really, really well. Like you said, it's a great resource to open up the cupboard and have something when one of our kids is struggling with something and we're like, oh, this is a God image thing. Now I have a resource for helping me teach them or encourage them in God image. And honestly, this is going to maybe sound a little weird. One of my favorite ones was the podcast on marijuana.
Oh, yeah.
Is that awkward or what?
No, you're among your,
and here's why, because I know company. It hit well, their numbers were high. And this speaks to another part of Breaking Bread where there are so many podcasts. And if I would just Google Christians' viewpoint on marijuana use, I am going to get so many hits on so many different things. And yet Breaking Bread, because of the support, the prayer, the ministry it is a trusted source. And so I trust it. I trust when somebody like Dr. Plattner has done the research, has stepped into that space. It's not a space I'm in. And so me being vulnerable and sharing that actually something like that, I don't know that space. I don't know those terms. And for him, the podcast to be able to speak into that is really huge for me. So something like that. And then I am obviously not unique. I am obviously biased towards any venue that can speak into specific women's issues, like Breaking Bread can. I'm a big fan of.
Matt, was there any conversations that just totally surprised you? Like you kind of have, because you set up the topic. You kind of think through a little bit, maybe have an idea where this could go, or some questions you might want to ask, and then you get in there and it just is like, wow, that was just not at all what I expected.
Well, actually, I would say that's very common. In fact, it's so common I can't give you a specific example because it happens all the time. And I would say that's actually what I am listening for and I am looking for as a host.
Is it like an aha, or this is something?
Or a different direction than you maybe
yes, surprise. Surprise is a tremendous human element, right, that you pay attention to and you awaken yourself to. And so I very much am listening within myself to that surprise.
And I think that's one of the things that's made you such a great host, Matt. Like you're just really good at being willing to learn and exactly curious. Like some of us, myself included, like to hear something that surprises me or that's different than what I expected. Like that makes me nervous
because you got the world figured out,
like,
right?
Man.
Brian is so smart.
Right. Yeah. Right. Insecure maybe would be actually the word.
Not.
And that is it's just been such a gift to be such a great learner and so curious and to let us join you in that has been really fun.
Which is so powerful just to think about that idea. And I hope our heart of this podcast comes out to the audience with just an abundant gratitude to those who are listening, that you walk on this journey with us with a spirit of curiosity and just let's learn together. Let's just learn together. It's so powerful when we can have that attitude. And dialogue does that. When you have conversation, when you have dialogue together, we learn from each other. When we go into something thinking we've kind of got it all settled and all figured out in our mind, it just shuts that down. And that's a really important just principle. I think we try to keep at the heart of it.
I think learning together really captures my affection towards the listenership, Arlan, because that's exactly what I am doing. And I'm doing it in the cab of their tractor or in the laundry room or wherever, and me and them learning together. And that's a tremendous blessing. And I would also add to that the grace that the audience has towards the content. We don't say everything correctly. We don't get it all right. We make mistakes. And there has been, not that that's ignored or not important, and we get some really nice feedback. Some feedback that's really constructive, instructive, and that's all taken to heart. But it's always in the heart of what you would expect around the table in a conversation. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, and that's exactly right, because you're going through a conversation together with people with the idea that 10 years down the road, we've morphed and we've changed and we've grown and we've learned and we've maybe adjusted, maybe stayed the same, but that's a different approach into content than when you go to a place of certainty apart from the scriptures, right? The scriptures we hang our head on, but beyond that, let's learn together, let's grow together, let's journey together.
That's the heartbeat.
Really appreciate our conversation up to this point. Any other thoughts or questions? I mean, this is your chance to ask Matt Kaufmann a question.
Okay. Fun question, Matt. If you could bring any person into this studio to interview,
dead or alive,
okay, stop caveats. Okay. Not maybe even in the mental health space, but be on a podcast with Breaking Bread, and you're on the opposite side of. Who would that be?
Oh wow.
He's a processor, audience. He's a processor.
You know what? I just got my dad in here.
Okay, that was
and that's and in fact that's playing right before this one, so everybody will, if they listen, will have known that.
I just listened to it this morning.
But that was a pretty special moment.
Yeah.
I have not yet twisted my wife's arm in here. I think we could have some really nice interaction and things that I would like to capture. Yet, I'm thinking through the optics of that, and I do feel like it becomes a little bit too personal then. And so I'm thinking through all of those lenses, right? What is this and what is this is not? This is not my show.
Yeah.
And so I may have bent that a little bit even with my dad's invitation. Yeah. But those are some things that I would think about. That's a really thoughtful question, though, Katie, and I would.
I'm putting my Caleb Beyer hat on right now, and I'm glad to hear that you think your wife would be your favorite host to have it. Yeah, that's good.
That's a good answer. Yeah, no, I did just listen to the one with you and Denny, and that was special. That was super sweet. Did a great job.
Matt, any other thoughts or anything you'd like to share?
Well, I really mentioned it already, but I will say it again. It has been an honor to serve in this capacity. It's been a privilege, and I want to thank our listeners for trusting us with the amount of time. I really don't want to waste people's time. Really don't. That's as an instructor, as a teacher, it's like one of the things that I know I'm prone to do and that I really don't want to do. And so the thought of this going on and people giving time that's not really redemptive, it's not what I'm interested in. So if that's the case, turn me off. Just turn it off.
That's the beautiful piece of the podcast. We have the autonomy to choose and to click or not click.
But for those who are sticking it out through the end, God bless you. And anyway, so thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Matt, for your dedication to this. Thank you, listeners, for being part of our family conversation together as we strive to help the hurting, nurture hope, encourage growth together. Thank you for listening in. And we thank the Lord for 10 years of faithfulness and ask that he would continue to add the increase to this ministry of breaking bread.
We don't know how long this is going to go, right? What's the life?
Well,
I don't know.
We just re-upped your contract. So
he didn't know he signed it, but apparently the contract.
But no, we do actually.
It's a valid point, right?
Yeah.
It needs to run its cycle. Let me just say that to the listeners, right? We have this conversation all the time. Is it time? When do you change a thing? When do you let a thing fade? And this certainly will, and we'll need to.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. And we hope that it spurs on many, many more conversations within the family as we grow together. Thanks again for listening in, and may God bless you all.